Welcome to the ACS Technical Advisory Board podcast series, where we talk all things tech including data, cyber, AI, blockchain, and Internet of Things. Meet your host, Dr. David Cook, Vice President of the Australian Computer Society's Technical Boards. David is a technology advocate dedicated to advances and progression of computing and human-computer interaction. In today's episode, David will be talking with ACS Cyber Security Committee member, Adam Green. Join us as we discuss cyber awareness and preparedness for businesses, why we need to be more vigilant than ever when it comes to verification, and how a pivot to a cyber career might not be as out of reach as you think.
Today, I'm talking with Adam Green. He's got 20 years of experience. He's into big tech, big SI, and he's a man that's passionate about the small to medium enterprise. And he's great at bringing cybersecurity leadership and vision to the industry. Adam, welcome to the program.
Thank you, David. Thanks for having me.
So let's start by something I know you're passionate about, the pragmatic approach. What does that mean in terms of cybersecurity?
Yeah, if we look at cybersecurity and what we call the noisy crickets or the whack-a-mole approach, there's so many different things that pop up. So you could just have an endless budget and spend that budget on a whole bunch of different technologies or different certification levels or, chasing different frameworks. So, we talk with clients, they're a bit confused. Do I go for Essential 8? Do I need to get to level 3 maturity for Essential 8? Do I go NIST CSF? Do I go ISO 27001? Why do I need to actually go down this framework path? So taking Essential 8 as the example, one part of Essential 8 that's really hard to do is application whitelisting. And we see a lot of organizations really struggle with application whitelisting. And without taking a contextualized approach, it's very hard to actually achieve application whitelisting. If you look at multi-factor authentication, that's not very pragmatic in a medical setting. You can't ask a surgeon to biometric sign into an application so they can use a scalpel.
And in fact, if it's critical, it's bloody dangerous.
Correct.
Yeah.
So where I talk about the pragmatic approach to cybersecurity is now we're talking about organizations that don't have endless budgets. So let's look at their specific attack surface or their specific risk factors and then line that up with their actual appetite for risk as well, whether it's the board, it's the owner of the business, it's the directors, and then point the cybersecurity capability and spend to where it's going to have the most impact. A lot of organizations will have put a fair bit of an investment into Microsoft. We see a lot of that these days. And the Microsoft suite, for the most part, can cover a lot of the cybersecurity elements. So instead of a this or that approach where Microsoft is involved, then it's looking at, is there an opportunity for a this and that and augmenting a small gap that may be there with the current Microsoft product, or it doesn't quite do what the organization needs for their specific risk factor, and then looking at the best approach for filling that gap.
Right. Now, Adam, you've recently joined the ACS National Committee on Cybersecurity.
Yes.
Thank you for your service in that regard.
Thank you for having me.
But you're known as one of the new age sort of people that provide guidance and particularly mentoring about people. Tell us, why is it important? Why is it that we need people like yourself to do a lot more effort in terms of mentoring, particularly in small and medium enterprise, I suppose. But, why is that important now?
Yeah, if we look at, there's different strings to it. So we all hear about the cybersecurity skills gap, and where you get your numbers from, you get different stats on that. But either way we look at it, there is a skills gap. But then there's also those that are in positions that need to level up their cybersecurity capability or their knowledge in cybersecurity. If I look at some people I've put on in organizations where I've been involved in hiring in the past, I've always tried to look outside the box and look for people based on their passion and their ability to actually, I won't say hack their way into the job, but definitely network their way into the job. And my biggest question I ask when I'm interviewing someone is, what's your favorite cybersecurity story? And why do you want to be in cybersecurity? I don't actually focus so much on how many certifications they've got or how long they've worked in the cyber industry, because we look at a few people that I was involved in the hiring of in a previous role. We had one person was a male nurse. So we looked at that. He was very passionate about technology, very passionate about cybersecurity, wanted to break into it. He was doing a Cert 4 in cybersecurity at one of the TAFEs. And we thought, okay, if he's a male nurse, we can walk him into any medical application or medical client, and he can speak with authority about what it's like to be on the front line in a medical scenario or in a medical environment. Then we had a guy who used to be a plumber. And if we look at networks and we look at plumbing, it's all piping, it all runs to one point. So he could logically work out architecture and pathways, and he proved that to us. But his ability to network his way into cybersecurity was second to none. I've never seen anyone do it that well. And he actually worked out to be an extremely proficient learner and the most enthusiastic cybersecurity professional I've had the pleasure of working alongside. And then we had a really talented female who came through one of the university courses, but her trajectory as she came into the organization looked like she was going to be a cloud architect. But being a bartender before, she had a penchant for breaking things. So I went, well, do you want to break some networks? Do you want to break into some firewalls? So we actually turned her into an offensive cybersecurity practitioner, but then that evolved through coaching and mentoring, and we actually made her a very good consultant with a bit of an offensive lens in cybersecurity. So that's people coming into the industry, but then you've also got people who are in roles, and it's actually just leveling them up and getting them greater exposure to great cybersecurity leaders, or actually seeing what a hack looks like when it goes down. If you want to be an Olympic athlete, don't go hanging around with people at the pub. Go find some people that are running around the town here in Melbourne. Go find people running around the town really quick and try and keep up with them. So if you want to be a really good cybersecurity leader, start networking with the people that are doing what you want to do.
Yeah, great advice. I want to just switch tacks for the moment and ask you about, you use the term federated supply chain model, and everyone's different, but explain to me what you mean by that term in terms of the vulnerabilities and how easy or relatively simple it is for a cybersecurity attack to take place.
Yeah, I mean, we had a recent example that kind of highlighted it for us when we look at the confusion around the CrowdStrike outage. And then we had some people going, Microsoft's out. And then other people going, my endpoints are dead. And then I can't get back online. And there was a lot of confusion in the market for quite a while. We're getting a lot of messages from clients, from colleagues, ex-colleagues, trying to figure out what was going on. Then the news started to come through. So it really highlighted to us that supply chain, that software supply chain, is quite vulnerable. But then if we look at the way that organizations are structured and organization partnerships and the way they're structured, like we look at some really big attacks and you can see it's an old one now, but Target US, 70 million credit cards disappear off the point of sale system, which was actually originally a breach through their air conditioning provider or their HVAC provider. We hear multiple examples all the time of a smaller electrical contractor being hit, and then they're actually used as the footprint into, or the stepping stone into, a larger organization. We also see that coming back the other way as well. So you've got large organizations that there's a breach that occurs on a large organization, the adversaries live off the land, and then they find all the smaller organizations attached through the supply chain and then start going after the smaller organizations because they don't have as good of a cybersecurity budget as the larger organization. So I think as we continue to federate and we continue to integrate supply chains or integrate buying procurement cycles and everything that we do with larger organizations and smaller organizations, is we need to consider those points of entry. Health organizations is a great example where you've got the state health body, like the Queensland Department of Health or Victorian Department of Health or New South Wales, and then other hospitals that, like the district hospitals that hang off the state health authority. If the state health authority gets hit, and a recent issue with a Cisco breach is a perfect example. Queensland Department of Health identified that they'd been named in what had happened with Cisco. So a bunch of other hospitals and what we call HHSs then have to consider, well, hang on, what's our relationship, federated relationship like with the state health authority now?
Yeah. Artificial intelligence, it's changing everything. What's it look like in terms of cybersecurity? What are the big issues?
Look, this is a whole podcast series on its own. I look at it from a different angle to a lot of people because yes, it's a big challenge. It's, there's a lot we can do with AI and large language models, and we can do a lot to be more productive using AI. But what I focus more on the offensive or the destructive side of cybersecurity. So I'll take a bit of that angle. We're hearing a lot of people talking about, giving us the FUD and talking about there's going to be big attacks coming from artificial intelligence. At the moment, if you look at Verizon's data breach investigation report and other publications like it, there's no evidence of AI-based attacks just yet. But what we are seeing, remember when we used to get a phishing email and it was actually noticeable? You could pick up that there was a difference in the way that they speak, like, wire transfer. We don't say wire transfer in Australia. But now we're seeing that language barrier is completely removed because they can use AI, the adversaries can use AI to script their phishing attempts for them, and then they actually launch those phishing attempts. So it's broken down that barrier. What we're also seeing is much more sophisticated, what we call smishing, so SMS phishing or toads, so telephone-based attacks. And then the other part that's actually, we've seen more and more attacks via it. I mean, Ferrari, the car company, had an issue where the CEO had been deepfaked, and they nearly lost money through it. But lucky they had someone who was aware enough to go, hang on a minute, this doesn't sound right. But deepfakes, using AI and deepfakes is one of the biggest challenges we'll probably see in the next couple of years. At least how we're going to tackle that is a big challenge. So I'm not sitting here thinking AI is going to create the next cyber Armageddon, but we all need to be a lot more aware of anything that comes through email, through SMS. You're speaking with your mother. Are you actually speaking with your mother? There's an example of a guy in the UAE who transferred nearly $700,000 to who he thought was his friend on a video call because the deepfake was good enough that he was convinced it was his friend who was bidding for a house and needed the money in his account so he could continue to bid for the house. So the awareness piece is like individual as well as corporate awareness piece around the risk of AI and the risk of actually opening an attachment. So being a lot more vigilant and a lot more aware is absolutely my messaging around AI at the moment.
Adam Green, thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much, David.
To find out more about how the ACS is powering Australia's technology brilliance, visit us at our website, Facebook or LinkedIn. Want to get involved with the ACS technical boards? Email us at tab@acs.org.au and tell us a bit about yourself. Join us for more thought leadership, ideas and information through our other podcasts on the ACS YouTube, Facebook or on LinkedIn.